My father mocked me for the only $20 my grandfather left me. Everyone was laughing, but they didn't know I was a female forensic auditor. The red circle on that bill was a code, and the moment I opened the vault, a truth came out that silenced my father's laughter forever. The note was resting on my palm, old, creased, just $20, and the room was filled with laughter. Everyone was laughing, but the loudest voice was my father's. He pinched the bill between two fingers and waved it like a dirty joke. "That's all your grandfather left you," he said. $20. I didn't lower my head, but my eyes locked onto one corner of the bill. A tiny circle drawn in red pen. So faint most people would mistake it for a stain. But to me, it wasn't a stain. It was a voice. My father had always seen me as lesser. He never understood what I did for a living. Always tangled up in numbers, he liked to say, with that tone that made it sound like a flaw instead of a skill. When I lost my job last year. When medical bills crushed my credit. When I gave up my one-bedroom apartment and moved into a cramped studio on the edge of town. Every time, he said the same thing: "You're not living life. You're just calculating it." What he never bothered to understand was that I'm a forensic auditor. I don't just look at numbers. I look for the lies inside them. I find the gaps people assume no one will notice. I see patterns others dismiss as coincidence. Numbers talk, if you know how to listen. I turned the bill over slowly. The red circle was placed at a very specific angle. An angle my grandfather Walter always used. He was a mechanic by trade, hands always stained with grease, but his mind was razor sharp. He used to tell me, "If you're hiding a secret, you'll always leave a mark. People can't help it." I folded the bill and slipped it quietly into my pocket. "I need some air," I said. Someone snorted. Someone else laughed. My father winked, like I was being dramatic, like I always was in his mind. I walked straight out to the driveway and toward my car. My hands weren't shaking, but my chest felt tight, like something heavy had finally settled there. In the trunk was an old lockbox. Rusted at the edges. Scratched and dented. It had come from my grandfather's garage years ago, after his death. I'd kept it all this time without ever opening it. There was no key. No obvious code. Just scars in the metal from age and use. And one detail I'd never really questioned before. A small red circle. Drawn at the same angle. I used my phone's flashlight and examined the bill more closely. Microprint. A sequence of numbers. Not random. Intentional. My throat tightened. This wasn't some sentimental keepsake. This wasn't a movie gimmick. This was my grandfather speaking in the only language he trusted. I closed my eyes. "A code is something you already know," his voice seemed to say. My hands moved before I fully realized what I was doing. 3 numbers. Numbers that had been written on calendars in our house for years. Numbers that never meant anything on their own, until now. Click. The lockbox opened. Inside were files. Bank statements. Receipts. Transaction logs. Everything neatly organized. And on top of it all, a handwritten note. My grandfather's handwriting was firm and direct, like him. He didn't waste words. The documents detailed a trust. Not massive enough to make headlines, but large enough to change a life quietly. A safety net. A future. And beneath that were years of transaction records. Unauthorized transfers. Withdrawals spread across multiple accounts. Dates spanning nearly a decade. One name appeared again and again. My father's. Nothing shattered inside me. There was no dramatic collapse. Instead, something aligned. Like a crooked picture finally being straightened. I closed the trunk and walked back into the house. The laughter faded the moment people saw my face. Conversations stalled. I placed the files on the table, one by one, methodical and calm. "What's that?" someone asked. My father glanced at the papers, then at me. His smile froze, as if it had simply forgotten how to exist. "That $20 wasn't an inheritance," I said evenly. "It was a signal." I pointed to one of the statements. "This trust was under your control," I continued. "And these transfers, every single one of them, was unauthorized." The room went completely still. No shouting. No gasps. No dramatic outbursts. Just the kind of silence that settles when the truth finally takes its place. "You're accusing me," my father said, his voice thin. I shook my head. No. I'm showing you. I explained that I'd already organized the files. That I'd already spoken to someone. A former neighbor, nothing glamorous, now working at a small law firm. No miracle rescues. No cinematic justice. Just the kind of help that exists quietly, if you know where to look. I told them I was still fighting bills. Still inside the system. Still living modestly. But I wasn't blind anymore. I wasn't guessing. I wasn't begging to be believed. My father sank into a chair. Someone handed him a glass of water. Someone else looked away. The $20 bill lay on the table between us, silent, unassuming, heavier than anyone had expected. Later, after everyone had left, I read my grandfather's note again. At the bottom, there was a single sentence. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's preparation. Life didn't suddenly become easy. Bills still arrive every month. My apartment is still small. I still calculate carefully. But I stand straighter now. I know that numbers can lie, but patterns don't. And I know that sometimes revenge isn't loud. It isn't angry. It doesn't need witnesses. Sometimes, it's just a door. And that day, I opened it myself.